Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this night-ending bonus upload. The bonus upload that actually gets us right up to Saturday Nightmares, live from New York, which I hope to see you all at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we jump into this, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night-ending bonus upload, shall we? Hello, Jeff. First, I want to thank you very much for the very helpful and informative channel you have made for the Dogman cryptid community. Thanks to many subscribers, I now can put into words what I saw. So, from October 2008 through the first of the summer of 2010 was a highly spiritual time for me. We lived outside of the city limits at the time in an old farmhouse. My usual route I took to work was a new interstate, I-555, to Jonesboro, Arkansas. I worked unusual hours at the time, and they changed slightly daily. The very early morning before my encounters, I was nearly in a major car pileup on the overpass due to freezing fog. It shook me up badly, and I even pulled over to the shoulder and called and woke my husband up because I needed his help to calm down. This is why the next early morning I chose to take an alternative route when I saw we had another freezing fog warning on the news. The best I can describe where it happened is go to the community of Painway, Arkansas, then find the old highway 463. When you do that, you can go to Street View on the map and go towards the town of Truman. Only go about 3 miles down, though, past a small community on a gravel road on your left. There will be a thick tree line on your right and fields on your left. So, as I was driving slowly and cautiously down 463, I saw up ahead a car with its hazard lights going in the opposite lane, since there really wasn't a shoulder. I immediately felt a sense of dread that increased as I got closer. I remember thinking, please don't step out in front of me asking for help. Not to be a mean person, but because I wouldn't feel safe stopping for strangers on that isolated road. When I got maybe 3 car lengths from the other car, I started seeing 2 dog legs running back and forth in the light from the flashers. It appeared to be scrambling, like it was trying to hide, but something definitely wasn't right. I started talking aloud to myself under my breath, saying, "Where's the other dog's legs? Why are they so huge?" Then, just as I got right up to the front of this car, this thing stepped out, all the way to the yellow line on the highway. It happened so fast, but I knew my unexpected fear I felt was correct, because this was a very huge werewolf right there. Freezing fog be damned. I stomped on the accelerator in pure panic, yelling to myself, "That was a werewolf, a freaking werewolf. No statum, there's no such thing, but there it was. Was it chasing someone? Was that why it was scrambling around?" Answering myself, I said, "No, you looked for any humans, and there wasn't any. Just a bleep bleep werewolf. This can't be happening." I don't remember getting to the interstate, only driving down it towards my job in a panic. I really wanted to stop somewhere and call my husband, but my body took over and kept going, gripping the steering wheel and had the accelerator pushed to the floor. It took a long while to get calmed down enough so nobody at work would notice and ask me about it, because there was no way I was telling anybody there about seeing a frickin' werewolf. Luckily, I only saw one person at work until after 8 a.m., and that was roughly 4 hours after the encounter, or sighting, or whatever it was. When it was running around the cars, I knew it moved too fast to be a dog, only on 2 legs. And when it stepped out right beside me, it stood straight up like a human, but with a wolf's head. I'd never heard of Dogman until I was searching real sightings of werewolves, and Jeff's channel came up. I clocked out of work at 9 a.m. since it was my shorter hour day, and I knew I had to go back down that road on the way home. It was still freezing cold, even though the sun was shining bright. I could see way before I got to the spot where the car with its hazard lights flashing that there was no sign of it. When I got to that area, I looked out in the field, and there it was. Roughly 20 car lengths away was a huge wolf. It was outrageously huge. Slowly, ever so slowly, walking on all fours towards the opposite way. But then it turned its head back and looked right at me. Thanks to another subscriber of yours, Jeff, I can put this part into words. Its face looked at me in an animated way. Its eyes locked with mine, and I knew without a doubt it knew who I was. The way its head rested up against its shoulders is what showed me that the front of this wolf thing was different than a normal wolf. Its upper back had more of a jumped-over look to it. It was black as spades and humongous. Stopping never crossed my mind since I was trembling with fear, just like earlier that morning, in the dark the first time I saw it. I had myself convinced, not long after that first sighting, that whomever was driving the car had turned into a werewolf. Now, with the car completely gone, and there that werewolf was, I saw I was wrong. When I got home, my husband called me on his break at work, and I told him everything, explaining how that massive wolf was at least 7 feet tall. And that wasn't counting its huge, very long tail, just from its head to the start of its tail. I was talking so fast and frantically, telling my husband everything. He knows me better than anyone, so he knew I wasn't mistaking what I saw with something else. Since then, we periodically will take that road on our way home looking for my wolf or my werewolf. So many questions ran through my head months after, like, where did it go all of those hours? Did whoever came back for the car see it? What was it doing there? Is the Dogman the same as what I heard men talking about they had seen decades before? Hellhounds? They said they had eyes that were glowing red. This creature's eyes weren't red or glowing. Before finding your channel, Jeff, my husband has been the only other living soul I have ever told about those 2 encounters. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your 2 encounters with us. I know it's been a very traumatic time for you, and probably was hard reliving that encounters as you typed that out for me. I appreciate that. The invite is still open if you'd ever like to come on and share your 2 encounters with us. Love to have you, and of course you will be anonymous, as I respect anonymity. Thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. Today's second part of the upload is brought to my attention via subscriber email. Apparently, out in Oregon and Washington, they like to use a different type of animal when there is an attack. There's only been 2 cougar deaths in 100 years. 2. In Washington and Oregon. Which we're talking about a 65 to 70 pound cat. Wild animals are not going to hunt people, regardless of what we have been taught when we grow up. They try to avoid us as much as possible. There's a great video on YouTube somewhere, and a group of hikers are hiking, and they are just above another group of hikers, and they see a bear coming up the side of the hill. And it looks like this bear is charging towards this small group of hikers. Women, men, not really experienced hikers. But it's not. It goes past them and then goes after a deer on the other side of the hikers. They try to avoid human contact. I'm going to read this article back in August of 2018. And they like to use dogs, wild dogs, feral dogs, domesticated dogs, bear, and cougar. Well, you're more apt to get struck by lightning than have one of these things attack you. And you're more apt to be attacked by a moose, to be real. And if you don't believe me, do the research. I just don't speak to hear myself speak. August 29th, 2018. A Grisham woman was killed in a suspected cougar attack near Mount Hood, suffered a broken neck, and had more than a dozen puncture wounds to the nape of her neck, records released this week show. Those injuries, as well as wounds on Diana Barber's hands, appeared to be consistent with an animal attack. Medical staff performing the autopsy office determined, according to the state police report. Well, obviously we know it's an animal attack, but it's definitely not a friggin' cougar. A 5-page police report doesn't list an official cause of death for Bobber, 55, which is determined by the medical examiner's office. State authorities have called her death the first confirmed fatal wild cougar attack in Oregon. Wildlife officials later shot and killed a female cougar they believed mauled Bobber, based on all the available evidence. The new details emerge in Oregon State Police documents obtained by the Oregonian, Oregon Live, through the public record request. Searchers found Bobber, an avid outdoors woodsman, on September 10th in Mount Hood National Forest, 3 days after out-of-state relatives reported her missing. They said they hadn't heard from her since August 29th. Her body was discovered about 300 feet off of the Hunchback Trail and down a steep incline, the state police report shows. The area was about a mile from the Zigzag Ranger Station, where searchers first found Bobber's car. State officials said her wounds indicated a wild cougar was responsible. A hunt for a mountain lion began almost immediately. Officials set up multiple cameras along the Hunchback Trail in the area where Bobber was found. Funny enough, well, none of this is funny. I hate saying that, but funny enough, notice they said this is the first fatal attack. Well, there really isn't any other attacks. I mean, we're talking next to nothing. But it's consistent. This fatality is consistent with a cougar attack because we know what they look like, but you haven't had any. Anyway, on to the next page of this interesting article. 3 days later, on September 14th, a trail camera captured an image of a large cougar, state police records show. This appears to be a big cat. Does it? Sergeant Todd Hoodfee wrote to Captain Jeff Samuels and Casey Cooting at 9:51 that day. About 6 hours later, search dogs treed the cougar off of Hunchback Trail, and it was shot and killed, according to the state police. The cougar's body was then bag-tagged and sent to the Southern Oregon for analysis, along with Bobber's clothing and other evidence collected during the investigation. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Forensic Labs in Ashland was not able to extract DNA from any of the evidence provided in the case because of significant lag between when Bobber was found and when the attack likely happened, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife said last month. Rainy weather washed away a lot of DNA that could have been used to determine conclusively if the female cougar killed Bobber, the agency states. Wildlife officials also never found any clear evidence why the attack occurred. A 64.5-pound cougar killed was not emaciated, so it wasn't hungry. It didn't have kittens in several years, and it tested negative for rabies and other diseases, according to the agency. According to state police report, ODFW believed, based on all the available evidence, that the cougar that was killed by the USDA Wildlife Service was the animal that attacked and killed Diane Bobber. Well, that poor 64.5-pound cougar was treed by hunting dogs and killed because they had no evidence except a camera shot of an apparent large cat. Asshole. I don't know. This really, the fact that the lady was killed drives me insane, but then the fact that the government covers it up and then kills an innocent animal because they don't know. They obviously said we have no evidence saying this cat, but we know it did, but we have no evidence. So that'd be like me walking down the road and getting pulled off the sidewalk, thrown in a police car, and saying, you killed this guy, we have no evidence, but you did it, because you did it. This just drives me nuts. And, I don't know. Crazy. There's another one that happened in Washington State just prior to that. So, as we all know, there's numerous sightings of Dogman, Sasquatch, in the Pacific Northwest. And I am working on something right now that has something to do with the Pacific Northwest and a shit ton of missing people. And the police write it off as something other than animal attacks. I'll let you guys know when that's up and ready for you guys. Anyway, let's move on. Part 3 is a subscriber submission. Hey Jeff, I've been listening to your show for about a year, and several others before that. I have lived here for 50 years in this same location. My eyes were opened about 6 years ago. I believe there has been activity here for the whole time. The overt activity seems to have picked up in the last few years. The neighborhoods are growing a lot, and maybe they are being compressed into smaller areas. Sometimes they have left me geographical wood messages. It seems what happened when they have an issue with something I have done that makes them uneasy or poaching into their property. I think they are getting a bit more at ease around me. Last summer I was outside and decided to get some sun late in the afternoon. The sun was blistering hot and bright. I lied down on my reclining lawn chair and reclined all the way back. I lied my shirt over my eyes to keep the sun out. I lay there for about 15 minutes. I was about 40 yards from the side wood line where I believed they frequent. I was lying quietly, but 100% awake. I started hearing small sticks breaking, like someone walking very carefully and slowly. At the edge of the wood line, where the trees start, is heavy with small twigs and dry litter where the trees shed their limbs. Also, lots of dead leaves were there as well. The area between me and the wood line is mowed and has less debris. At first, I thought it might be squirrels. But I could hear the small twigs sounding like they were being broke underfoot. I listened to that slow snapping of very small twigs for about 5 minutes. It seemed to be getting closer gradually. The sound of it reminded me of what I have done when I have been out night stalking burglars, moving about one step every 20 seconds. Then at some point the sound changed. I still had the shirt over my eyes and was trying not to move and just see what developed. Then, as I listened further, the sound changed to a more regular, overt soft walking. And I could hear what I thought was it going through the transition area between the woods and the cleared area. There is an old shallow drainage ditch which is acclimated. A deep layer of crunchy twigs and leaves, maybe 3 feet wide. That runs the length of the boundary. I thought I could hear right after the walking sound changed, that it was crossing that deeper layer of leaves and twigs. Then I could hear it move. Out of the ditch and into the mowed area where I was. There was still some leaves and twigs in the mowed area. I could hear slow footsteps that seemed to be coming directly toward me, or at least in my direction. I wanted to raise my head up and see what was there, but my chair was reclined back so far that my feet were higher than my head. I can't bend my neck up enough to see that direction. The chair has little levers that lock the chair's position. The footsteps are getting closer now, at least halfway to me. It only 30-40 yards to the wood line. I decide the only thing I can do is unlock the chair and move the chair back upright. Can't do that quickly, though, so about when it sounds like it's maybe 20 feet away, I move the chair and rise up. When I do that, the footsteps stop, and there is nothing there to be seen. The mowed area is wide open, no trees, closer than 50 yards in any direction. There was no sound after that and no sign of anything. It all almost seemed like something was trying to come over to where I was, sitting, walking as quiet as it could. But then, it could not be seen when I raised up and opened my eyes. What the heck do you make of it? Victor mentions seeing one evaporate in his scope when he was about to pull the trigger. Another interesting thing that happened a couple of months ago was out in the general area that afternoon. I was walking my dog on the leash, and the cat was walking with us as well. We all three play together often. It was a perfectly warm day. We got to the middle of the backfield in the middle of the mowed area, so I decided to sit down and soak up some sun. The dog was just investigating smells, and the cat was with me, and I was scratching its back. We sat there for 10 or 15 minutes, just relaxing and enjoying this perfect day. It was quite quiet then. Then, out of the blue, I hear a noise come from the woods. And it sounded like the noise came from maybe 20 feet into the wood line. The interesting part was what the noise was. It It was a noise infant babies sometimes make when they blow air through their lips and make that slobbery motorboat noise. But in addition to that, there was also a humming tone with it that started high and went low as the air was blowing out and the lips doing the motorboat. This was just like I've seen babies do before they can talk and they want to make noise to interact. And this noise came from 20-30 feet over in a 7 to 10 foot tall palmettos. I laid there for maybe 10 minutes more. Then the three of us got up and I walked by that area and talked to them. I said hello, as Kat Hansen suggested, and friend. But I didn't get any responses. I imagined that the tiny one may have been watching my dog and cat play and maybe wanted to participate. But the mommy must have been frightened that Junior made a noise and revealed their presence accidentally. I wanted to try to give an idea that I knew they were there and it was okay. I want them to feel not threatened. I expect that there was probably an alpha mate somewhere nearby on Overwatch. What do you make of the seemingly invisible one? P.S. I once saw a huge bright orb at the treetop level back in the late 70s in this very same wooded area. Well, my friend, I find that very fascinating. Your first part of the encounter definitely is creepy as hell. I mean, and something I've always thought, and with the Sasquatch, just an idea, I mean, yeah, I really honestly believe they are flesh and blood. I think that they have some sort of ability to maybe bend time or whatever, a fabric maybe between ours and theirs. I'm not really sure if I'm saying it right, but the noise they make, this noise that actually hits our insides, this like, there's something to that, I think. I've always thought that. This powerful, when they make their noise and it hits a person in the chest and it's knocked people down. I'm surprised it hasn't given people heart attacks. But it's powerful. And there's something to that. But something I've always thought is that people could be running, tracking a Sasquatch, and it just go, it's doing its thing and running away, trying to evade, and all of a sudden it just goes behind a small pine or a small tree and it's gone. Didn't go anywhere, it's just gone. So I've always kind of thought that they maybe an interdimensional, or just that enough to just go beyond the fabric of our reality. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just something that I kick around in my head a lot. Not so much with the Dogman. I don't know. But with the Sasquatch, yeah, I really think they have some sort of definite power to do that. I mean, they have, first, they're gigantic. They have that, they're very strong. And if they are the missing link, then where the hell did they go from then to now? Unless they just kind of just hid in that fabric of time and reality. I don't know. Maybe, there's those thoughts that people have that extraterrestrials came down and didn't breed with us, but created a genetic code with us, or with them and the monkey, to create something. Maybe they created that. Maybe they created the Sasquatch first. This is just one of my stupid ideas, so please don't hate me for it. But maybe the Sasquatch was not what they wanted. Maybe they achieved the goal was to create something different than a monkey, and them created the Sasquatch. But it wasn't what they wanted. Maybe it's what, maybe we are what they wanted, and that's why that happened. You know, but so they kind of gave up. And then that gives those Squatch that power. You know, maybe, you know, we only use 10% of our brain. Maybe the Sasquatch, even though it can't talk and it may seem stupid because it's a big hairy animal, but maybe it has that, maybe it uses a different part of its brain to make those sonic vibrations, which can just kind of bend the time and reality to hide. I don't know. Just some stupid idea that I come up with every once in a while. I come up with a lot of them. But anyway, let's move on. Today's fourth part of the upload. We live in Natick, Massachusetts. This incident happened in the spring of '06. There's a wooded area and a portion of it containing an old abandoned fenced-off factory that is relatively near to apartment buildings. Some of my friends who live at the apartment complex went about a half a mile into the wooded area for camping. Their names will be omitted. Now, before I go further, I must say that my area has experienced very weird sounds, although, in my opinion, they are very unwolf-like. They sound like a woman screaming crossed with long dog barks. A very indescribable and terrible sound. They come from various directions, though usually from the apartment area. Much of the camping trip went normal for them. However, about dusk they noticed the cry from off in the distance. They set up their tent and lights, etc., and got into their tents. One of them had to get out in the midst of the night to relieve themselves, but she went outside. She got an overpowering sensation of being watched. She returned inside and rused her boyfriend to come out with her. When they got out, he also felt that sensation, but at the time said he didn't mention it in order to comfort her. As she was going, her boyfriend swears he saw something walk away from the campsite. He could see it through the brush to the right of the trees where she was, a large, approximately 6.5 to 7 feet, man-shaped figure covered in grayish fur, sporting a wolf-like feature, a bushy tail swaying behind it. He was shocked and ran into the tent, leaving his girlfriend, who came running in moments later after hearing the rustling of the creature. Throughout the night, they and the others who awoke during the commotion stayed awake, continuously thinking they heard the cry in the distance. They never encountered it again, but left promptly in that morning. Today's fifth encounter, Taylor County, Texas. I was a truck driver at the time for a huge retail chain. I was driving down Highway 287 between Chester and Woodville at about 1 or 2 in the morning. There was no traffic, so I had my high beams on. Then I saw this thing standing along the side of the road. It was huge, covered in dark fur. And it just walked on 2 legs across 287 in 3 steps. Now that highway is about 25 feet wide. As it crossed, it looked at the truck, and its eyes reflected in the light, like most animals, but the color was not like any I had ever seen before. Once it got across the road, it stopped, looked in the other direction, and then just slipped off into the woods. I was about even with it as it got to the edge of the tree line. It just kept going until I lost sight of it. It was tall, approximately 7 feet tall, covered in dark brown or black hair, with odd-colored eye shine. This is the first time I've said anything about this to anyone except my wife and my 2 daughters. Today's 6th part of the upload. Bryan County, Oklahoma. I was sleeping and it woke me up. It was screaming so loud I thought I was dreaming. I pinched myself. When I realized that this was for real, it took me about 7 minutes before I could move. I was in shock. It ran around the house 5 times before I could move. That is when I woke my mom up. You could hear it running around the house. It would scream so loud it hurt your ears. I woke my mom up. Today's next encounter, Bryan County, Oklahoma. I was sleeping and it woke me up. I was screaming so loud I thought I was dreaming. I pinched myself. When I realized that this was for real, it took me about 7 minutes before I could move. I was in shock. It ran around our house 5 times before I could move. That's when I woke my mom up. You could hear it running around the house. It would scream so loud it hurt your ears. I woke my mom up to let her hear this scream, and she panicked and knocked all the pictures off the table. We had 2 German shepherds. One would bite. We looked outside, and the 2 dogs were about 25 feet from the house, barking like they were very scared of whatever it was against the side of the house. We called the police, and all they did was shine the spotlight on the barns, and they left. We concluded that they probably had other reports of this, and they were like us. They didn't want to see it. Well, there you have it, folks, this night-ending bonus. I hope to see you all at tonight's Saturday Nightmares live from New York. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives folks like you a chance to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth. And God bless.